Welcome to The Way It Is Naturally. And my name is Perry. I am the CEO of Bill Fierce Training, and I'm the host of this show, being produced by Bill Fierce Media. And we're going to talk about the showpiece muscles, the things that, generally speaking, get guys into this business in the first place. Maybe not so much for the women, but definitely for the younger guys. Anyways, we're going to get into this topic as soon as I get through this. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope everybody's doing fine in this Labor Day weekend. Weather's been so-so, a little on the cooler side, but that's okay. Everything's. I'm just hoping everybody is safe and moving right along, and then things get back to normal. Work week, eventually, I guess, for everybody. What do I want to start with tonight? Maybe a few updates on myself. Training's going good. Work on the facility is going good. I'm hoping to speed that up because I definitely want to start shooting some videos here. Maybe even do some of the live broadcasts down in the actual training studio. What else? I'm going to be starting doing a series of motivational speeches, as well as the publishing of 2 books. One book in particular will be just in regards to being a natural trainer and natural fitness enthusiast. It's going to be basically a do-all, tell-all about what it takes to really, accomplish what you want to accomplish in that sport or in that activity, taking it to its limit for you personally. Something that people who don't go the natural route will never be able to. You can't take the same path, at least not identical. There are definitely some similarities, but there needed to be a very all-encompassing book in regards to the natural approach. Not just the natural approach, but the natural approach to both training and winning, because you can win as a natural, okay? The other book is going to be basically a tell-all, an autobiography of my story, which I think many of you will find quite inspiring. It's not meant to brag about myself. Life has been challenging, to say the least, especially in the last number of years. And I do believe that most people, when they read this, will find it inspiring if they happen to be in a dark period in their life or a dark stage and wondering if they're ever going to come out of it. I'm here to tell you that you can come out of it. You can rise above it all, through strength within yourself. Hopefully, I can maybe convince a few people to find strength in the Lord Jesus Christ, because he will get you to where you can't get on your own, that's for sure. Anyways, let's just move along to the topic of this evening, biceps and triceps. If you would talk to most youth bodybuilders, maybe not so much the older guys, I'm just talking about guys at this point, but it's meant for everybody. They're gonna, if you ask them, what is the first thing that they would notice on a if they weren't training already, and what they want to have, I would say 9 out of 10 of them are going to say big arms. Some will say big chest, big back, but the majority of people are going to say big arms. And sometimes you hear women describe an attractive feature in a man, a big strong set of shoulders and a big set of arms. I mean, it's just something. It's called a show. The showpiece muscles. In particular, it's funny though, but most people don't catch on to the idea that I mean, yes, people know you have a bicep and a tricep, but they don't really realize that the tricep actually makes up 2/3 of the arm. But people always think of building big arms. They think of building biceps. They don't even know what a tricep is. Sadly, I mean, they don't realize it's such a large component The tricep is actually a larger muscle. It's a three-headed muscle group. The bicep is a two-headed muscle group. But in order to have good arms, you need to develop them both. Okay, and they both take similar strategies because along with your calves, your biceps, and your shoulder muscle in particular, these are your smaller muscle groups, and they are trained slightly differently. Generally speaking, most people at least will not go quite as low in repetitions, even if you're doing HIIT training, which I do. Um, tend to maybe go slightly higher in the repetitions, but not a lot. Okay, and I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying they are they pertain to a much smaller muscle group, less strength than let's say the quadriceps or your chest, your pectoralis or your lats. Okay, it's just reality. So why don't we start with biceps? Okay, when you think of biceps, those in the bodybuilding world, if you were to say, biceps, who are the most incredible set of biceps? So you want to really go back in history, and the most fullest set of biceps. I bet you 9 out of 10 people would say Larry Scott. Larry Scott had a set of biceps that he didn't have a tremendous peak, but what he had was such a full bicep. And Larry Scott, for those who don't know, the preacher curl was originally called Scott curls, and Larry Scott attributed his biceps to this. I'll get into that later on. I mean, it really had little to do. He may have done a lot of Scott curls, but he just happened to have great insertions to have a nice full muscle belly. And basically, that we're talking about the long-headed muscle belly in this case, because the short head contributes much more to the peak than the long head does. Okay. Then, if you want to talk about peak biceps, most people, when I think of a peak bicep, I think of someone like Boyer Coe, or I think of Robbie Robinson. Why? Boyer Coe was the first one that actually came on. You could actually see a split in Boyer Coe's biceps. And for those who don't know about Boyer Coe, Google him. He didn't have the prettiest physique, but he had phenomenal arms, and he had an incredible split in his bicep peak, something you rarely see, okay, especially in that day and age. And Robbie Robinson also, tremendous peak on his biceps. I'm not talking about natural athletes here, but, give credit where credit is due here for the actual body part. I'm not talking about how they attain them. I'm just talking about just specifics, anatomy, that's it. They had, classic examples of what these things are. So with a bicep, as I mentioned earlier, you have, I'm going to bring up let's see, let's go into do a share screen I think on here. I wonder if we can get that a little bit bigger for you people. Yeah, we're going to talk about around biceps here. Yes. So I'm going to go into my screen here. Okay, and we're going to talk about, if you can see here, over here, you see you have your short head, okay, and then you have your long head, and then you have your brachialis here. All these three components come into play when you're developing your bicep, okay? And because, these muscles are fairly small, it's one exercise to the next is not going to be make the difference in that particular component, at least in my opinion. What I'm trying to say there is when you have, let's say you do a particular exercise, because the bicep is so small that when you're doing a movement, you're not necessarily going to only be activating the fibers of the long head or the short head or the lower insertion or the upper insertion. I do believe for the biggest part, most movements will influence the whole muscle to some extent. Now, I'm not saying that's 100%, but then again, I don't believe growth happens in particular. Like, for example, if maybe it's easier if I explain it to you by example. If you were doing any type of curl, it could be a Scott curl, a preacher curl, or a barbell curl or a dumbbell curl, but you only did the lower portion. You only did that first third. There's no way you're going to convince me after 4 decades of training that you're only going to develop that end of your muscle. It doesn't happen. It activates all the muscle cells, excuse me. Okay, that's reality. But I do believe in attacking any muscle group from multiple angles to get maximum benefit. Maximum stimulation, be it mental stimulation, physical stimulation, it doesn't really matter. I do believe you need to attack it from random, not random, from an assortment of positions. And I also do believe you have to understand, you actually in the last number of years, you've found a lot of people have had a lot of tears, bicep tears, tricep tears. Of course, a lot of this has to do with the fact that, the drug influence, right? Let's face it, if you take X amount of drug and you're training a muscle group that's so small, and you use any type of careless fashion whatsoever, and you do that, and you get reckless, if you're getting tremendously strong because you're on anabolics, you have a much greater chance of tearing that muscle, and it happens on a regular basis. It really does. I mean, people are literally ripping their bicep right out of the insertion points, especially the lower insertion point. You don't hear about it so much at the upper insertion point, but definitely at the lower insertion point. And that's where it's very important to use extra caution at the lower end of a movement. You don't want to put, you don't want to hyperextend that elbow joint too much, especially in a movement, let's say like a preacher curl. You got to watch where you're supported from. I personally like to have most of my elbow exposed. I don't like benches that actually hold my whole arm. But with that said, I just hang on. I'm just going to put hold on. I just want to mute my mic for. Okay, we're good to go. Anyways, I'm going to be very cautious about what I do with the bottom end of that movement. Okay, bottom end of that movement is where all the tears are going to happen in a bicep. Okay, so the other point to take into account is, to get maximum potential out of any exercise, you need to take a full range of motion or make sure you're creating constant tension. And the only way to do that in any exercise is to be able to adjust your arms throughout the movement to make sure that you're keeping direct tension. Case in point, if you do a preacher curl, especially if it's on, some of the preacher curls are very low angled like this. I don't care for them whatsoever. And so your arm is basically outstretched. I don't know if you can actually catch this on the machine, but your arm is basically outstretched. Now if you're constantly in this position, but when you come up to the top, if you fall right over, you're not putting any tension on your bicep whatsoever. Okay, so you need to be able to keep tension on the bicep throughout the whole movement, especially at the top end. The other point to keep in mind is people don't even understand the concept of supination. Supination is basically if you took your bicep and you had your wrists, let's say, turned inward, meaning, palms facing each other, and raise your arm up, and you feel a contraction in your bicep. But now from there, rotate your wrists out. That's full contraction. That's called supinating your wrists. And you need to supinate in order to get a complete contraction at the upper end of the movement. So these are things to keep in mind to get the maximum benefit out of your exercises. And for a natural athlete, this is very important. When I talk to anybody on these live feeds, keep in mind, I'm talking about the natural athlete. I mean, it's not that I don't care about the other individuals, but they're relying on other means to get their results. They're training. Some of them are training hard. A lot of them aren't training hard. A lot of them are doing very careless movements, half movements, because they can get growth out of less effort. Have to excuse me. I don't know why I'm burping. Anyways, so making sure that when I teach a client, I make sure that they pay attention to all the important factors. That means the small things are that makes the difference. So why waste your time on any exercise if you're not going to pay attention to the small elements that make all the difference? And this is probably my biggest, pardon my language, piss off with personal trainers. I see in the gym constantly that know nothing about actual exercises. Outside of sitting somebody on a machine, most of them know nothing about putting somebody through their paces in a free weight movement. To be honest with you, most of them don't even know how to set them up properly on an actual machine, because machines were designed to have axes in the same position as your joints. And most personal trainers that I've seen don't even pay attention to that, meaning they don't even lower and raise the seats in order to get shoulder joints in the right position or elbow joints in the right position. If you don't do that, you're fighting the body mechanics and you're not getting the most out of these exercises. Matter of fact, they'll feel so foreign, you'll probably get nothing out of it. Okay, so why don't we talk about some great exercises in to use on biceps? I mean, there's so many. And you can be doing them with barbell, you can do them with dumbbell, and you can do them with machines. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about a machine. You can find actual curl machines where you sit in them, or you can find, and with a curl machine, I'm just going to skim through these really quickly because the machine basically determines how you move through it. So in a curl machine, all you have to make sure of is where the axis is on the actual curl point. It matches your elbow. Because if it doesn't match your elbow, you're fighting the mechanics, okay? So that's not going to work. Make sure you're in the right position. Same goes now when you get on a preacher curl. If you get on a preacher machine, this is the only type of actually curl machine they generally will have, okay? Make sure the same thing, that you are situated in a position, so sitting back, with your armpits under the bench, so that your elbows are in line with the axis of where the machine is. If the elbows are not, you're fighting the mechanics, okay? So skipping the machines, because machines are not, I believe you will build the ultimate body on 90 to 95% of free weight. I truly believe that. I still rather train people on free weight. There are a few key machines that is tough to beat. It's tough to, tough to deny that it's hard to do it or mimic it in any way, shape, or form with free weights. It just isn't. Okay. So let's start with some dumbbell movements. Okay. We have, dumbbell curls. Dumbbell curls can be done standing up. They can be done sitting down. They can be done on an incline. They can be done alternate. They can be done same arm. There's so many variations, okay? Personally, I don't believe that most people, what they do wrong in the case of dumbbell curls is on the downward portion, they keep their elbows back, meaning when they lower the movement, which is usually too fast as well. So their movement is usually the canter is too fast. The cadence, is too fast. So they don't lower it properly. Second of all, their elbow is back so far that they've taken the tension off. So I always teach my clients, these are the important factors. When you're curling, when you're in the positive portion of the movement, move your elbows slightly forward. Always keep the elbows slightly forward. By keeping the elbows slightly forward, you're keeping tension on the bicep. But as you reach near the top, then it's better to draw your elbow back just a little bit. Just hang on just a second. I have to mute my mic. My dog decided to play soccer downstairs in the in the studio right now. I apologize for that. Anyways, okay, so once again, when you're curling, when you're in the positive portion of the dumbbell curl, move your elbow slightly forward. And when you're in the negative portion, slightly slightly forward, but as you reach the top or the crest, you want to drop it back just a little bit. But once again, once you descend, you move the elbow forward again slightly. Always remember to supinate completely, meaning turning your wrists out, okay? And full control up and down. That goes especially for beginners and intermediates. We can, cheating reps and things like that, that's for advanced guys and girls. And you know what? You don't need to go there in those beginning stages. And that means years. I don't mean days and months. You're not an advanced bodybuilder because you've been training for 3 months or even 2 or 3 years. Many people barely even have a handle on what their body even does after 3 years. Okay, it's a long-term process. And if you take the drug route, you speed up, you don't learn anything. You just know that you took this crap and you grew. That's it. You learned nothing. And when you stopped, you lost it. Okay. So the other thing I'll say is if you're going to do dumbbells, if you're working a dumbbell movement, I think it's counterproductive to do simultaneous. If you're going to do simultaneous, do the barbell movement. That makes sense to me. The reason why you do dumbbells is because you can focus on one arm as opposed to the next. And you can do it 2 ways. You can do all one arm and then all the other. I think it's more of a benefit to work them together, because if you don't, what will happen is if you're really working hard and you work your right bicep, for example, then you finish that. Now all of a sudden you're physically already tuckered out before you do the left. So doing the one arm, then the next. But remember, when you do it that way, you have to remember to keep tension on the alternate arm that you're not using. Meaning keep that arm slightly forward. That way the tension is always on the bicep, then you do your other one. And you balance that back and forth. And that's how you do that. Okay. You can do that seated on the end of a bench, completely 90 degrees. You can do it on the various forms of degrees in an incline. Okay. Another good dumbbell movement would be a hammer curl. A hammer curl is the dumbbell version, basically, of doing a reverse barbell curl, and it will really work the brachialis. Okay, it definitely will focus in on the brachialis, and for those people that don't have the longest insertion, that's your best defense in order to make your bicep look fuller. Okay, because I showed you in this diagram. Maybe I'll bring the diagram up again here. Let me see if I can just bring it up here just for a second. And yeah, I'm going to try and focus in on the picture here just for a second here. This part right here. So if you can develop this portion right here, which is, almost a separate piece on itself, okay, you can then fill in some of this gap that if you're not blessed with a nice long insertion point here from your long head and short head, okay? So let's go back into here, and let's go back to here. Okay, anyways, so that's a good movement. I personally, I don't have the longest insertion for my bicep, so I tend to do reverse curls on every workout. I prefer the barbell version. That's just me. And I use a full grip, meaning I don't do a thumbless grip, because in that position it's very tough. I have done it thumbless, but if you're really taking, like doing HIIT training, basically your grip gets to the point where you can't even hold on to anything. So you want to have your fingers wrapped around that bar. Okay. The standby barbell curl is a great movement. It's not necessarily great for everybody. Okay. It's funny, and at different times in your career, you might go back to it and get away from it. For years, I never did any barbell curls. I did all dumbbell curls, always. And then I started liking preacher curls, and in preacher curls, I always went to barbell. Okay. Lately, in the last couple of years, I've gone to regular barbell curls. I do barbell curls, and I do reverse barbell curls for my brachialis, and that's a good combination, a very good combination. Same thing goes as opposed to when you're doing your dumbbells. Remember that when you're curling it from the bottom, your arm should be slightly forward. And then when you get to the top, you pull them slightly back so you're not up like this and then it's just falling over on you. You want it here, okay? And then as you move, lower down with a good cadence, you bring it out forward again. Keep the tension on the bicep, top to bottom with the movement, but be very careful with your bicep. The bottom end of your movement has to be very controlled. If you don't control it, chances are you risk ripping your bicep insertion. Even if you aren't using drugs and you're not super strong, it's just like anything else. I mean, people throw their backs out doing vacuuming. So the same thing can happen if you get careless. Even with a light weight, you can rip your bicep, okay? And you don't want to do that because you're training, well, you can ask a number of, former pros that their careers have ended because of it. Dorian Yates comes to mind right off the bat. I do believe Dorian could have won another 2-3 years and kept winning titles, but, he tore both his bicep and his tricep. Just not a good situation. Tough to come back from that. Okay, so we got dumbbell curls, we got bicep barbell curls, inclines, reverse. We also have concentration curls. Concentration curls, they can be done heavy, just like any other movement. People tend to think, well, you're going to do a concentration curl, you have to go really light and focus in on that peak. Now, how much peak you have is relative to your muscle insertions once again, and has a lot to do with the shorter head of your bicep. Okay, so if you're blessed with a big peak, that's great. And can it accentuate it? Yes, sure it could. But once again, I don't believe you need to go light. I always get away from this idea that people like to propagate, especially on the internet. Light weights for for getting cut, and and heavy weights for getting bulk. First of all, I never use the term bulk and cut whatsoever. You train to be your best at all times. You know what? You're getting ready for a show, that's one thing, but you don't need to actually change your training one bit. You can get ready for a show by training the same way. It gets tougher as you diet down, but that depends on where you let yourself get in the first place. If you didn't let yourself get, 50 pounds out of shape in the first place, and you don't have as far to diet down. You don't have to be as strict, and you can get yourself into razor hard condition, eating a larger quantity of food, and be far more productive and stay strong. That's fact, I mean, and that's common sense. Okay, let's move on to tricep. Tricep, a little bit larger muscle group, but keep in mind what I told you. The tricep is actually 2/3 of your muscle size. You develop, probably some of the best triceps, ever. Arms, period. Sergio Oliver Olivier, I'm not even sure how you pronounce that, to be honest with you. The man had humongous triceps. They looked like they were connected between his wrist and his armpit. He was renowned for that. Just had big triceps. And it's a three-headed muscle, okay? I think we can bring that up on here. Once again, I'm going to go to this screen and try and bring this up here. Let's see, where am I here? I think we got, triceps here. Okay, so let's see, get a little bit better view here. Okay, so you have a long head, a lateral head, and a medial head. The long head, if you can tell, and this applies to the bicep as well. The long head tends to cross the shoulder at the upper insertion, and then inserts down at the elbow at the lower. Tricep is the same way here, and then you have your medial head, which is actually between the three of them. And the three of those muscles together compose the actual tricep muscle and give the mass to it. There's nothing worse than somebody who has, strictly has a, let me just get this out of here for now, has a tremendously developed bicep and no triceps. First of all, it's not healthy. It can lead to injury because of an imbalance. Imbalanced physiques tend to lead to injuries, okay? The other point is that it's just, it just looks totally out of whack. It doesn't take a lot to bring it into coordination. So put in some effort and work your triceps, okay? Tricep exercises, I think it's best to work your tricep in a numerous position, and I don't believe you're fully working your tricep if you don't at least do one movement where your arm is in the completely behind your back, behind your neck type of position. I don't believe you can fully work the long head, so to speak, unless you get yourself into that position. And some of the key exercises to do tricep are actually fairly basic. You gotta also understand when you're doing bench press or when you're doing, your shoulder press, you're working your triceps a lot. The same goes for bicep. When you're doing your rolling movements, you're working your bicep. But when I'm trying to say this is because one of the best movements for building tricep is to do a close grip bench press. And by close grip, I don't mean hands right together. I do mean having them about, anywhere from, the edges of your chest to, 12 to 14 inches apart. You got to find where that's comfortable. You don't want your wrist binding on you. You want to focus the effort onto your tricep. And you're not so much working to flare your elbows out, completely 90 degree or perpendicular to your torso. You're just trying to do a same movement as if you're doing a tricep extension standing up. So your elbows can be slightly forward, and it's a fully to the top, fully to the bottom, always under control. Okay, keeping tension on the triceps at all times. Okay, nice about this is you can do that movement on a Smith machine, and you can take it, right to failure. If you don't have a training partner, you can take it right to failure without worrying about it crushing you, because you can just hook it onto the safeties and away you go. Okay. Another one, which is another basic movement, is dips. I can tell you that I didn't do dips for years in my training. I don't know why. I did a lot of different movements for triceps. I never did dips. Even the guys I worked around or trained with, I didn't see them really doing dips either. It just wasn't something we did. But When I started getting ready for when I won the Alberta Championships at 35 years old, I started doing dips. And I got to tell you, my triceps responded like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I'm not a tremendously strong guy. I don't take drugs, and even, I just not a tremendously strong guy. I have small joints. Anyways, I was able to do dips and work my way up to, I was using 245-pound plates around my waist and doing full movements with dips. So I do believe in them. And I do believe, as a matter of fact, if I was to take one compound movement, I would say that one above the close grip bench press, but they're pretty close, both of them. Once again, good control, because if you get to the bottom end of that movement, you can definitely do some damage to your tricep if you try and take it too low or you're out of control. Okay. You don't want to be ripping the tricep muscle at either insertion point. Okay. Do it under good control. And remember, you're not doing chest here. So you're not worrying about flaring your elbows. You're keeping them closer to your side. Okay. And you're trying to stay somewhat more erect when you're doing this position. Okay. The old standby tricep pushdowns. The thing is, tricep pushdowns can be done in so many different versions. They can be done completely with your elbow, completely 100% straight up, and focusing on keeping your elbows tight to your side. That is a good way to do it in a very isolated fashion. Okay. I do two different versions. One is an overhead version where I have my back to the stack, and I use basically a V bar, and I have my arms straight out in front of me. I'm about 45 degree or 60 degrees from the stack. Remember, if the stack is here, I'm facing this way, so my body is like this. Okay. Anyways, so extending all the way back and all the way forward. I found I get tremendously strong like that. Or I actually do a reverse where I'm facing the stack and I'm doing this motion, but I'm bending it into a little, and I'm allowing it to come up, to the center fairly high. I'm allowing my elbows to travel, not carelessly and not out of control, but quite high up, and then all the way down, complete contraction. Another movement. Many people, and I do believe this is a great compound movement. Some people will do very strict, they call them skull crushers. Basically, they're just, lying tricep extensions is the actual name for them. And you can do them with a barbell. Some people will do them with a dumbbell. Some people will do dumbbell extensions where they bring it across their chest as well. And that's more of an isolation movement, which would be similar to doing a reverse tricep extension with a set of cables. That's basically a quick rundown on arms, bicep, tricep, showpiece muscles. Understand that this is a small muscle group. You might want to be, your target repetition range should probably be in that 7-8 range. I wouldn't really go below 6, but I definitely wouldn't really go above 10 either. If you're trying to, if you're not interested in ultimate size, but you want good size and you really want to, you like that pump or whatever, you're not really planning on getting on a stage, you could probably even go as high as 12. You're certainly not going to, do yourself any damage, that's for sure. Okay. Remember to always be under control. And I do believe another thing I'd like to mention is if you're not trying to gain ultimate mass, arms are one of those body parts that respond so well to supersets, and that's just a topic that we're going to talk about when we're going to talk about circuits. We're going to talk about supersets and trisets and giant sets. These are all information that people you need to know as you get further into this sport, and you learn to love it. And there's just so much to learn. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up by saying I'm glad you stopped in. I'm hoping to see many more of you stopping in. We're going out again. I'm really looking for some people to contact me in regards to Spotlight Fridays. Like I said, I've kind of changed the format. You can come on live. Really, it's like sitting in your living room by yourself, just talking to me on screen. You don't even know people are watching. Okay, it's a very simple process, easy to do. You can do it on any PC, even on your phone. I'd love to do the live version. If that makes you a little uncomfortable, just send me your story. I want to see before and after pictures if you have them. I need to see something to validate, the changes you've made. Or maybe you're somebody that's been involved with the sport and made some changes in your life. Maybe you were involved in the drug aspect of the sport and you decided to go clean and been that way. And, or whatever, however, fitness and bodybuilding has impacted your life. I want to hear about it, and you can inspire others. This is the platform. I'm trying to build the biggest platform there is out there for natural bodybuilders. I think it's lacking severely, and especially it's lacking on people that are 100%. There's no common ground between. It's not like it's a war, but what people do when they do drugs, I don't consider that bodybuilding. That's going to get me into a lot of hot water with people, but I'm not here, to worry about who I'm going to make friends with here. I'm here to take a stand on something here. It's natural bodybuilding. It's meant to be natural. It's meant to be healthy. And that's the only way I want to teach it. And that's the only people I will teach. Keep in mind, I'd love to have you, join me on YouTube. Like and subscribe. I got a ton of live streams already up there. There's going to be a whole bunch more videos coming out. We're going to be doing some exercise demonstrations. There's going to be, I'm adding a portion to my, whether it be actually access through my webpage, which is bull-fiercetraining.com. You'll be able to maybe access it there or on YouTube itself. It's going to be called The Vault. And in there, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch more things in depth, a lot of short tutorials on different things. It'll be a paid subscription thing, but quite cheap. It'll also allow you to get discounts on merchandise, as well as seminars and webinars and training programs as well. Anyways, I hope I see some of you people around on the next show. I'm not sure if I'm doing a Q&A on Wednesday. I'll have to look back into the scheduling. Oh no, we're doing a segment on creatine. Getting a lot of questions on creatine. I'm seeing a lot of questions on creatine, and we're gonna stamp out some of the myths surrounding that. And then, like I said, Friday, hopefully we're doing a spotlight on somebody. Okay, so please contact me. You can contact me at plarrabee@bullfiercetraining.com. That's fiercetraining.com. Or you can contact me through Facebook, Bull Fierce Training on Facebook, and Instagram and Twitter as well. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this. I hope everybody is safe and you're enjoying your long weekend. I want you to all take care. God bless, and we will see you on the next show.